got people and families out here in the United States that are struggling. I just paid $600 worth of utility bills in 1 week.
Yes.
All right? I haven't got enough money to feed my family, but I make too much to get food stamps. I don't even make $10 an hour.
Right.
Now, if you took that money and subdivided it between the taxpayers in this country, we would stimulate the economy. You know why? Because we go out and pay off bills, pay off tax debts, create jobs, and buy stuff that we need.
Caller.
That's how you stimulate the economy.
We're not the experts on the Hill as to how to solve this problem, and the problem is a multifaceted problem, so we gave great flexibility to the Secretary of Treasury to act. We were having an electronic run on the banks. They decided to close the operation, close down the money accounts. If they had not done that, their estimation was that by 2 o'clock that afternoon, $5.5 trillion would have been drawn out of the money market system of the United States, would have collapsed the entire economy of the United States, and within 24 hours, the world economy would have collapsed. It would have been the end of our economic system and our political system as we know it.
September 18th, 2008. A lot of people call it the abyss. We were beyond the abyss. I mean, you have to understand that in the history of the financial world, we never had $786 billion be withdrawn from quote-unquote safe money market accounts. This was about the banks. This was about a withdrawal of maybe $2 trillion and like the world's biggest margin call.
And that's why when they made the point, we've got to act and do things quickly, we did.
And we had borrowed about $55 trillion.
Do you know what $1 trillion is? $1 trillion is one of these, turned on its side, piled dollar upon dollar, until you get a pillar 67,000 miles high. That's nearly 2.5 times around the Earth.
As bizarre as Paulson was in a lot of ways, he got it. He got it immediately. And when he called these guys together, he said, you know, boys, we got a problem.
You know, we're not any geniuses in economics or finance anyhow. We're representatives of the people.
If we don't act quickly, what we could have, financial Armageddon, 25 trillion, 50 trillion, 500 trillion. Nobody knew this market was going south, and as cash was literally flooding out of the system, the bells started hitting.
Anybody who labels this as a subprime crisis doesn't really know what they're talking about. The truth is that it's far broader.
It's a combination of things.
The combination of hubris and greed.
People were greedy in the 1950s, they were greedy in the 1970s, the 1990s. Why should greed suddenly, in this decade, have caused a problem? People are always greedy. It's sort of like blaming airplane crashes on gravity.
We subsidized people's losses, and we also subsidized their greed.
We had this toxic combination of big government in bed with Wall Street.
Decades of easy money.
We divorced risk from accountability.
We just dumped $6.5 trillion, 7 pillars, 67,000 miles high of single-dollar bills into what pit? A pit of political recklessness, indecision, fecklessness, and favoritism.
Since September 18th, the net worth of households in the United States has declined by $14 trillion.
What if everything we based this on was an illusion? Maybe a delusion, if you want to call it that.
The fact is that the 14 trillion never really existed. It was fake. It was built upon debt, massive amounts of debt. The housing wealth that had been created and the stock wealth didn't really exist. It was all a liquidity fake, a mirage of wealth.
And I got some bad news for you. This wasn't an accident. This was the result of conscious decision-making and some very bad judgment.
Somebody threw us in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean without a life raft. And we're trying to determine what's the closest shore and whether there's any chance in the world to swim that far. We don't know.
And that's when Paulson hit the panic button, and that's what we saw on September 18th.
How did that happen? There's a lot of blame to go around. One of the things that happened was the institutionalization of many of the ideas of the 1960s affecting the future of our country in a very concrete way. Ideas have consequences. And we are seeing the consequences of the ideas of the 1960s unfold in our society all around us.
Well, two things happened in the summer of '69 that are indelibly etched in our memories.
You had the moon landing on the one hand, and you had Woodstock on the other.
In the late 1960s, there were two visions of America deeply in struggle. One had come out of World War II. It was successful. It led the world. It landed on the moon. It believed in science and technology. It had a sense that Americans could do almost anything. There was a positive optimism about the future that was remarkable.
Now it is time to take longer strides. Time for a great new American enterprise. Time for this nation to take a clearly leading role in space achievement, which in many ways may hold the key to our future on Earth.
John Kennedy had said we were going to have a man on the moon by the end of the decade. Kennedy simply willed the result, and we saw that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon in the summer of 1969, a terrific achievement for America.
Within the space of a few weeks of the moon landing in 1969 was the iconic music festival at Woodstock, when something like 400,000 people gathered in the mud for several days of music. It was something greater than had ever happened before. It wasn't just an event, it was now the Woodstock generation.
This self-indulgent, wealthy elite that's decided to become a bunch of modern-day bohemians and rewrite all the rules of our society.